right, Nate. The first round of the expanded 12-team college football playoff begins Friday night with an in-state battle of Indiana, with Notre Dame taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. What do you make of both of these teams going into this game?
Yeah, it's an interesting game because usually after 12 games of a college football regular season, we kind of know what each team is. But I'd argue there's a
Mhm.
little bit of unknown about both teams. I think you could kind of make the case for Indiana plus the points because you have a little bit of questions about who Notre Dame's played. They obviously had that great week one win against A&M, followed up with a really puzzling loss to NIU. But then down the stretch in the last 10 games, Notre Dame won most of their games by margin. However, last week of the season, regular season, they almost lost to USC. I don't know if they almost lost, but it was a close game at least where Notre Dame, they're up seven. USC is driving, and then Notre Dame gets like a 100-yard pick six. USC drives down the field again, another pick six. All of a sudden, Notre Dame's winning by 21 in a game that felt like it was going to be tied. So I still have a little bit of questions about Notre Dame and who they've played, but at the same time, who has Indiana played? You look at their schedule, they
Mhm.
avoided Penn State, they avoided Oregon. They lost to Ohio State in that big test game, their only loss of the season. But really, their best win of the season was against a very down Michigan team at home. There are other teams, they beat Nebraska and Washington at home. But other than that, they beat up on a bunch of teams in the Big Ten who didn't end up making a bowl game. So, have a little bit of questions about both teams, but I think that makes it really fascinating to what we're going to see in South Bend on Friday night.
For sure. With all that being said, though, Nate, what's your bet going into this game?
Yeah, so I mentioned Indiana plus the points could be interesting,
Mm,
but feel more comfortable going under 51 and a half here. I think it's good up
okay.
to 51. That's kind of a key number in terms of college football totals. It got bet a little bit up, which surprised me from 50 and a half through 51 to 51 and a half, but I still will push back on that line move and say the under is the way to go. I do think it'll be difficult for Indiana to score in this game. They have a nice transfer quarterback in Ohio's Curtis Rourke, who's had a fine season, but it's a little bit of a different level going up against this fighting Irish
Mhm.
defense. And I actually think Indiana's defense could play okay in this spot. They played Ohio State, as I mentioned, Columbus towards the end of the regular season. I actually thought Indiana's defense played well. The scoreboard might not say so. They gave 38 points,
Mhm.
but 14 of those were directly from special teams miscues, a botched punt by Indiana at the end of the first half, and then Ohio State had a punt return for a touchdown. And then Ohio State scored like a very weird, awkward touchdown late where we thought they were taking a knee, and then Ryan Day said like, "Let's like." I don't know, push the game
Yeah.
over, do something. It was a
Yeah.
really weird situation where I actually think down to down, Indiana was okay in that game. And Ohio State has a much better offense, at least talent wise, than Notre Dame. So I do think both defenses do well in this game. If you're Indiana coach Kirk Cignetti, you know your path to keeping this game close, winning the game, shorten it up, run the ball. I'd expect them to chew clock. There also could be some cold weather in South Bend on a Friday night in
Yeah.
December. I also think Notre Dame is going to try to run the ball, especially if the weather is a little bit inclement or they don't really trust Riley Leonard to make big time
Mhm.
throws and potentially turn the ball over. So I'm expecting a conservative game, low scoring. I like the under in the first ever college football playoff game in the 12 team expanded format era.